And that's exactly what this G7 madness is all about. What if they start taking payments in Indian rupees? Well, G7 is going to sanction them because they're using rupees and not dollars? Like, it's just getting a little absurd now, and to the point of being almost a planned chaos, a planned downfall. Hey, and welcome back to the second half right here, Mini Ice Age Conversations, brought to you on TV every other Friday, 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern. Now, before we went on the break, I was talking about Egypt now considering the possibility of payments with Russia, and all of these other African nations jumping in and creating their own trade blocks, the Saharan and the Sahel trade bloc, which is right here, the Alliance of the Sahel States. Lo and behold, here we go again. I cannot believe they don't learn from their mistakes. It's like a kid putting your finger in the light socket. Okay, G7 and EU prepare sanctions against any third country bank using Russian financial messaging system. Okay, it's clear everybody's moving to BRICS-Pay and moving over to this same tertiary system or secondary system that's competing with the SWIFT system. And here you are, you're going to try to now sanction some. Sanctions didn't work against Russia. How are they going to work against all these countries that are coming under the wings of Russia and China? It just makes no sense. Unless it's planned. Then it makes sense. Like, you really can't with a straight face tell me these countries are starting to break off and now you want to sanction every country that doesn't want to use the SWIFT system. And every other country that wants to either trade in yuan or rubles or gold-backed currencies, that you're going to sanction them. This is insanity, what you're seeing here. That they think these same policies that didn't work the first time are going to work again. It's just working against us. For these leaders, these weak leaders that we have to keep pushing. Why has the world changed so much? Well, Russia and China and South Africa and India are coddling and offering something that we never did. They're offering them food, protection, development without all the strings and without all the military intervention. Here's another one. Somalia announces a deadline for Ethiopian ATMIS troops. Now, ATMIS is it's a United Nations peacekeeping force that was set up after, Black Hawk Down and that sort of thing, after the U.S. was withdrawing out of there, where they got an African coalition to go in and try to keep the peace. All under the United States, or quote-unquote United Nations. So they're saying, y'all get out. Out. We're going to take our coastline back. We're going to develop our ports. We're going to use the resources, and you're not welcome. Get out. So it just continues. The Somali administration is autonomous now and running with Russia. Sudan stays committed to obligations to build a Russian Navy base. Oh, that just stung. I dropped the brick on the U.S. toe there. Thought the U.S. is only allowed to have naval bases across the Red Sea and the Suez Canal, partnerships with Egypt, our preferential friend over there that controls the canal. Now Sudan says, yeah, come on in. This is what I'm talking about. Eritrea, Sudan, Somalia, or Somaliland, these areas that have broken free, and U.S. is powerless now to stop it. That is what I get at, is powerless. Mali striking a deal with, Ganfeng, to do a lithium mine there. And here is, there's some numbers for you here. I'll read it at the bottom. The beneficial agreements. And the agreement also raises the share of state and national stakeholders in the project from 20 to 35%. This is what I'm talking about. They're going to give them preferential treatment. They're going to build out their mines. As long as they can extract it, the government still will take, 65% of that? With America, it would have been 0.065 or something. The amount of wealth that's going to roll in just because they're getting paid fairly for what their minerals are is going to reset the stage for development.
If only the payments made to Stormy were made in gold, we would have been spared the investigation. This is why insatiable central bank demand has transformed the gold market. Gold investors need to buy the dips. Central banks are. UBS and Goldman both revised their forecast to $2,700 an ounce by year's end. Bloomberg and Citigroup are calling for 3,000 by 2025. TD Securities said silver eyes $50 an ounce. And in 2024, gold is up 18% and silver 35%. Protect your retirement with gold or place a bullish bet on silver. Call the proud Americans of the Patriot Gold Group today before it's too late. Mention the Adapt 2030 channel. You're going to get some great in-class service. Also, Patriot Gold Group has a no fee for life IRA where your IRA or 401k can be in physical gold or silver. No fee for life IRA on qualifying rollovers. Give them a call, 888-546-7020. And also now for the 7th year in a row, Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs top-rated IRA gold dealer. 888-546-7020. And now on with the video.
They will take that off the back burner straight into the front burner when they have billions, hundreds of billions coming in every year on royalties. And there will be accountability. Apparently, some of these papers that I'm reading are like, they're not going to let it go free like the IMF did. It's like, here's your billions, dictator, take over. Oh, reinstall another puppet who is going to give us 1 penny on the dollar. Oh, this guy wants 2 cents on the dollar. Overthrow that guy. We need a back penny again. If we can get a guy for half a cent on the dollar, he's our man. There's a great book called Rotten Fruit that was written about the coups in the 1950s in Guatemala, because the Guatemalan government at that time wanted fruit companies, Dole, for example, to pay taxes on the land. And we see what Central America has been through the 80s. And that started in the 50s. So now El Salvador taking it back, going to Bitcoin. Oh, angering the West, but they really got no say anymore. They really don't. So Tanzania surpassing Nigeria to become India's second largest trading partner after South Africa. Here comes India chugging in also. What can the U.S. say? Well, Tanzania, Nigeria, you're not allowed to trade with India. And that's exactly what this G7 madness is all about. What if they start taking payments in Indian rupees? Well, G7 is going to sanction them because they're using rupees and not dollars? Like, it's just getting a little absurd now, and to the point of being almost a planned chaos, a planned downfall. And Africa's largest refinery in Nigeria, speaking of Nigeria, sends first ever jet fuel cargo to Europe. 45,000 tons of jet fuel into the Netherlands, in Rotterdam there. So look at the tech jumping up as well. They're manufacturing jet fuels out of the oil, which used to be just by the barrel on the tanker, and then thanks. And we'll write that off against the IMF loan that we gave to your dictator, and we'd get free oil continuously. Those days are done. They're bringing it in, they're building refineries, they're going to have end product, and that will be shipped out at global value. And I'm not sure what a ton of gasoline and a gold equivalent would be, but there's going to be an exchange rate for that, for sure. What's a jet fuel equivalent in grams of gold? Not sure, but it will evolve, and they're already working on it. We'll get a tabular sheet at some point, and they'll just roll it out and be like, all right, gold equivalent, natural resource equivalent, finished product equivalent, gold. And then, with the Sahel coming together in this trading bloc, here's another one. These southern African nations, and I've been down to the Okavango Delta, been down to South Africa, Zimbabwe, traveling around. So they're coming together with a single united visa for tourists to come into all these nations. They want to go to the Kalahari canals. They want to go to the Kalahari Desert. They want to go to Okavango. They want to go to Zimbabwe at Vic Falls. But each one of those was a painful visa process. I don't know if you've ever been, but man, it takes a little bit to get across some of these borders there. So what they're trying to do is facilitate a travel through visa for tourists. Angola, Botswana, Namibia, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. They call it the Univisa, where you come in one stamp, you can travel to all those countries, and you just show it at the border, and you just fast line. And I guarantee they're going to set up a fast line for this Univisa line. You got hey, this thing's just as easy as it is going through borders across the Eurozone. This is the exact same thing. They're setting it up. They want the travel money. Now imagine taking all those dollars away from a new area, and that can guarantee some safety. Everybody loves the animal, but it's just a little difficult. It was a little dangerous. So what if they can clean those problems up and turn it into something the equivalent is going up to the vineyards in Italy? That's going to be a new draw for the planet. They're going to pull money away again. All those foreign reserves are coming straight in there. Now, Algeria has directly applied for the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. This is another Belt and Road initiative that is going to be on the sea lanes. And then we got Central African Republic actually went to Russia to participate in this international economic forum that the U.S. and other partners had tried to disrupt left, right, and center, but they were unable to. They tried to stop people from attending. They were threatening that if you attended, your ministers or this, that, and the other. And then Tunisia and Chinese leaders holding bilateral talks in Beijing. It just goes on and on. And this is only from the middle of May of last month into now. You got all this happening. It's just a month of time, especially with this new economic cooperation and this huge meeting where 12,000 people attended this economic BRICS meeting. And now we got Thailand announcing plans to join into the BRICS. That's a big, revenue earner also with tourism. So let me ponder this question for you here. Let's take a look at the countries with the highest GDP per capita in Africa. Everything we discussed so far, if we look at this, how many of these nations are on that list of all, where this targeted development's going with huge amounts of money? Algeria. That's about it. Because if we read this, obviously the Seychelles, island nation, tourist hub. Mauritius, another island nation, tourist hub, went there as well, went surfing down there. Gabon, Botswana, Equatorial Guinea, Libya, South Africa, Algeria, Namibia, and Cabo Verde. Tourism is the main draw, and this is why they're so wealthy. Right now in Africa, tourism is or was the main revenue earner, and those that had the safaris and already set up the infrastructure for tourists were the ones that were benefiting off of this. They also had airports. They could guarantee the safety of people visiting. Nowhere on this list is anything that we were talking about here with Central Africa Republic and all these different places that have been just incredibly poor for so long. As we move down the timeline, this also list here shall change. But you can see where the new money is going to go, for a better term. You could just cross these off the list, and if you're an investor and you're looking to see where this money is going to go, it's not going to go so much here. It's going to go to those other places where their return is going to be much higher for a much longer period of time. Because if you're jumping into the Seychelles to try to invest in hotels or something, it's already saturated. But if you're jumping into, let's say, Chad, and you're building housing for the workers coming, for the agricultural projects, the water purification projects, the pipeline projects, the railway projects, there's a huge possibility of you making an enormous amount more money than any of these nations here. So this is, you're already not going to be developed so much with that kind of Russian Chinese money list. They're kind of split off, and you can see where that's going to go. Now, if we're looking at global leading economies, this is another thing a lot of people don't take into consideration. U.S. going, oh, you're so strong, you so strong. Yeah, okay, I hear you. In our world it was. But if you look at, add up China, India, Russia together, that's more than if you're adding up U.S., Japan, and Germany. But Japan is swinging definitely over into the BRICS nations. So in the future, you could add Japan on top of the Chinese GDP. So if we look at that, there is really not a stark difference. They're nearly equally weighted now in terms of how much money and influence is across the planet in this other sphere of influence. This is where it gets a little tight, and everybody was talking about Belt and Road Initiative. Oh, it's dead. There's no more Belt and Road Initiative. That whole thing, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, it's a moot point. Why even talk about Belt and Road? I think they abandoned that, didn't they? Oh, wait. Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan. What do we got? Uzbekistan. Now, you notice China on the west there. The problem they've been having is Uzbekistan, if you come out more to the east, sandwiched between Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, there's a valley inside there that has been tumultuous at best to create peace agreements with all the different ethnicities. So there was no way that this place was developed until now. So China rocks in there and says, hey, we need to get through Uzbekistan with our rail lines on the south corridor. And once they get into Uzbekistan, look, they can roll north up to Russia, and they can roll south down into Iran, going along the Caspian Sea, and the massive amount of grain production coming out of Kazakhstan. In addition, Ukraine and Kazakhstan, those are the two giant bread baskets sitting to the left and right of Russia on the Caspian Sea there. This corridor is thought once to be unachievable due to, well, ethnic differences and control of the land and nomadic movements that was offline. But here, this railway in their Fergana Valley has finally been achieved. Who brokered the peace deal? China. These countries understand they're going to be part of this program or they're not. So there's a lot of shift in what was conceived as once impossible to solve. Just like Iran and Iraq coming together to open embassies for the first time ever in history, brokered by China. So this is a new railway system here that's going to be going through Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan. Again, these are centuries old conflicts that could never have been solved, but now because of commerce and development, they are. So this is the Fergana Valley, this area that you're looking directly in the center of the map. Where the dotted lines are, this was a no-go for either nation. It was basically an autonomous warlord zone based on ethnicities and tribalism going through here. This is why there was so much conflict. This is only the 31-year chart of border disputes here. So with China's help, that has been, well, solved. So when you look at it, there's a few mountain passes that have been used on the Silk Road time immemorial. It's nothing new where this has transited, but they were off limits for so long. Now, this was the northern route that Beijing used to have to run. And once you get into the Tarim Basin, they had to go north of that. And you're looking at something like 800 kilometers north out of your way. So anything that was produced in like southern China had to go 800 kilometers north and get on that route to make it west. And then you see the same players out there in Kashgar, that's the furthest west, in Xinjiang, and then you start moving over and you get into Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan. So let's take a look at the map here. G30 was where they would run that's called the northern route. What they really wanted to do all of this time was hit G315, which is the southern route, but then once they got there, you come into this Fergana Valley and they couldn't put the rail lines in. They couldn't get the infrastructure laid in there. They can now. Because if you're looking at what the Taklamakan Desert is in the Tarim Basin right there, going from G315 up to G30, that's 800 kilometers. So you got 480 miles difference in road length in transit time. That's a huge amount of cost to move through. And now we can see that Tashkent, once they get through there, and this is going to be the new express routes. They're going to run that southern route down south of the basin there. And once they do, they can save at least 500 miles off of a trip from anything manufactured south from, let's say, Pearl River Delta heading overland into Central Asia. Think about what just occurred with this. They're going to run and control all of the trade routes that were once thought unthinkable. And they're using these specialized cars here. They were called block trains, developed specifically for these routes, coming through sandstorms, coming through high winds, arid conditions, freezing conditions, because when they're going over some of these passes, and you're coming down into boiling hot desert to freezing cold in some of these mountain passes, in addition to the inclement weather. So the differences in variance in temperature for, it's like frozen goods, for example, on a reefer container, sometimes doesn't work because it's either too hot or too cold jumping in, and that there's containers that we know, usually you're in a state where they're on sea, they're at sea level, or they might rise a little bit in elevation. But going through 130-degree desert up into, below freezing conditions in a matter of hours, that takes a toll. So they're building these specialized delivery vehicles. And when I say this, these weak leaders have created a problem for us in the West. And I thought this was so apropos for what we're looking at in today's world. On the periphery, we got the unelected Eurocrats, which are pushing policies on the finance and military side. They're not elected, they're appointed. Who appointed them? Oh, the Bank for International Settlements. European Central Bank is appointing a lot of these people. They weren't elected. They're just doing the bidding of the banks. And then what we have here, just lost the election. Oh, is that Germany? 50-year poll numbers for Trudeau in Germany. Another election loser, France. Too senile to stand trial. 26% approval rating. Well, Japan's economy is in the tank anyway, and cost of living is just roaring north. And then about to lose the election over there in England. These are the weak leaders that have made bad times. We need strong leaders to bring back good times. And as we move, and this really just sums up our world where we sit. And when I talk about weak leaders creating bad times, let's swing down to Australia for the last couple minutes. Now, this is coming to a country near you under the new green agenda and the guise of efficiencies and global taxes, carbon emissions, etc. Landlords are going to get crushed with these new efficiency rules under the green agendas rolling out in Australia. Minimum rental standards is what they're calling it. They've just rebranded. You're going to have to refit your house under the green agenda because nobody will accept that. But minimum rental standards, they can say, people that are renting your house are paying too much for electricity because you're leaving on old heat pumps and you're not sealing the windows. So your renters are paying more for electricity just because you won't fix your house. But in reality, they want you to spend between $8,000 and $20,000 for just a simple retrofit that may or may not even meet standards. This will be required before you put your house on the market. You could read all the documents of what has been planned for the future. They're trying to roll it out in Australia first. And some of the things here, installing ceiling insulation where there is none, because you don't need it in some places in Australia. But you're going to have to be required to put it there now. Also, drought proofing, weather seals on the doors, external doors, like storm doors is a name for that here in America. New electrical hot water systems, 3-star efficiency cooling, which means heat pumps. So think about you as a homeowner. You're going to have to get all this done and retrofit before you can even rent your house, because this group of renters has come together with their own non-governmental organization to say renters have more rights than the homeowner. You have to give them a house almost for free. You're not allowed to raise the rent, and you got to fix everything, but it's really under the guise of the green agenda. Now, if you can't fix your house, you're going to put it on the market, and who's going to be there to purchase that? Do you think? Scratch your head. BlackRock, Vanguard. They're going to swoop up all the homes of the people who don't want to fix their homes and spend all that money on it. So this is another ploy to get you to own nothing and be happy. If you were a previous homeowner, you're going to be happy to get rid of your house because you're not going to want to plunk that 20 grand in and not be able to raise the rent. They're all talking about, well, it'll save the renter $567 a year on the energy bills. But wait, you just tagged me for 20 grand to fix it up. Who's got more rights? I'm the homeowner. And they don't allow them to raise the rent. There's rent restrictions. I think it was a 1% per year now. Because they're going, all right, well, I need to fix this home. I need to charge more rent. You're not allowed to raise the rent except 1% and all these bills. So people are like, this is too much. It's way too much. So if your parents made 80 grand in the 90s, you have to make $246,000 in 2024 to have the same life. 246K is the new 80K. And you can see why it's happening in real time. I do thank you for watching. David Devine signing off. See you next time. Bye for now.